Over the last several months, there's something unexplainable appearing in the night, from the skies over Missouri to above the Pacific Ocean.
It's not a satellite, and it's not a meteor.
All baffling pilots mid-flight.
I don't know what the common denominator is, but it's always at the bottom of the Big Dipper.
Mark Holsey is a former F-18 fighter pilot. This August, he was piloting a private jet off the coast of Los Angeles when he says he saw as many as 7 mysterious objects appearing to fly thousands of feet above him. This is audio from that night alerting air traffic control.
Roger. Yeah, I don't know. You're not entering any military airspace or anything. I'm not sure.
The clip obtained by Ben Hansen, a researcher who has spoken to dozens of pilots of commercial flights that have recently had similar encounters.
So it seems like it might be getting more frequent?
It's either getting more frequent or it's getting noticed more.
Okay, there it is.
But while no one seems to know what they're seeing, Holsey is sure these fast-orbiting objects aren't satellites or any known military aircraft.
There's nothing that flies that high. So the odds of it being a military aircraft doing high G loads like that, it's impossible. It's completely impossible.
Does this phenomenon seem to be under intelligent control?
That's the only thing it could be. I mean, it's either artificial or biological.
It all comes on the heels of a congressional hearing earlier this year where intelligence officials testified for the first time ever that there were about 400 new sightings of unidentifiable objects, adding UAP reports are frequent and continuing.
No, I do not.
Okay, strange.
And this latest wave of sightings from pilots could be just the beginning.
I bet my life on it. There are many more pilots and a lot more videos that are going to come out. I know this is going to happen. I know it is.
And Gotti, you mentioned that there's a government report that is expected to come out. What do you think will be in that?
Yeah, that Pentagon report is expected to be given to Congress by the end of the month. It could either provide an explanation for the increasing number of sightings that we're seeing, or it could reveal some more information about new encounters. The question really is how much of it is going to be declassified. Meanwhile, Mark says he was told his report is going to be included in that review for Congress, and based on other pilots he's been talking to, he is convinced dozens of commercial pilots are going to be coming forward describing the same kind of lights flying in that racetrack-like pattern in the direction of the Big Dipper. The craziest part of his story, he says, is he saw a shooting star during all of this that was coming in that direction too. And he's like, oh my gosh, there's a shooting star happening as well. And then that shooting star joined in the pattern that those other lights were flying, something he's never seen before.
Whoa. Dozens of pilots can't be making this up.
I know.
It was the streak seen across the sky, now seen around the world. This, as our 8 News Now investigators confirm, Metro actually set up cameras at this home where a family called 911 claiming to see aliens in their backyard. And tonight, a fierce debate is underway about the legitimacy of an alleged UFO crash.
Well, let's keep our eyes to the skies this morning. Not even 2 months since bombshell whistleblower testimony alleging a secret U.S. government program to retrieve alien spacecraft. And lawmakers say their efforts to get more information are being stonewalled. Representatives Tim Burchett and Anna Paulina Luna say they have faced pushback trying to get security clearance for the whistleblower David Grush so he can discuss classified information he wasn't able to share during his testimony. This, by the way, is a uniquely American problem. In several other countries, documents describing UFO encounters are widely available to anybody who wants to see it. So let's bring in Nick Pope. He investigated UFOs for the British Ministry of Defense. Nick, it's good to have you again.
Thank you.
The contrast and comparison here, it's pretty stark. I mean, in Brazil, UFO sightings and reports are all public information, right? I mean, no security clearances. People like you and me could access the files, no heavily redacted documents, all the visual evidence that you could want. And yet here in the U.S., forget about it. Highly sensitive, lock and key. Why is that the case?
I think the problem comes because of the backstory in the United States. There's no legal or constitutional problem with any nation saying we've discovered extraterrestrial life. But if it emerges that a nation has known about this for decades and has consistently hidden that from the people, then that is a problem. And of course, until fairly recently, the official position of the US government was no one's looking at UFOs at all and no one's interested. We found out that wasn't true. So what else are we going to find out isn't true? So there are legal problems and problems perhaps with amnesty negotiations for people who've been sitting on this.
Yeah, and I know that the UK has declassified and released about 60,000 pages of UAP information, a lot of which you yourself wrote, right? Do you like that it's available, and declassified for the public to be privy to?
It's great to see some of the files and documents that I worked on back in the Ministry of Defense now declassified and available at the National Archives. That said, I do appreciate that there are valid reasons for keeping some information secret. For example, you talked in the previous piece about Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. There are doubtless things relating to UAP, particularly if there are technologies involved, which we wouldn't want an adversary to find out about. So there are legitimate reasons sometimes for classification.
The Pentagon reportedly receives around 300 to 400 reports of UFOs each year that can't be explained, and it now seems that governments around the world are treating the phenomena, which was once ridiculed, much more seriously. With suspicions that they could be the result of intergalactic visitors to our planet, top-secret tests of military aircraft, or new ways to spy on countries, the evidence of the existence of UFOs is now mounting up, with some of the clearest video, audio, and photographic proof you'll ever see. Countless requests, the Pentagon has in the past few years released a series of videos of unexplained phenomenon that have been experienced by personnel, with fighter jets often flying over regions that few other aircraft go to, and with everything being recorded by onboard cameras. It's some of the most compelling evidence that there are objects flying in the sky that are far beyond the capabilities of human-built designs. And what these two videos show are clear proof of this. These clips, known as Go Fast and Gimbal, were recorded between 2014 and 2015 by fighter pilots based on the USS Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group and were operating off the east coast of the United States. They show mysterious objects moving at high speeds and erratically, and are still classified by the State Department as being unidentified. Of course, this doesn't necessarily mean they have an otherworldly origin, but with no known craft able to maneuver like this, that's certainly one explanation. These videos were only officially released to the public after they had been leaked to a reporter, and with authorities reportedly receiving at least 400 reports of UFOs each year, many of which are investigated by military aircraft, you just have to wonder how many more clips like these that they have that may reveal the full extent of unexplained objects in the world's airspace. Paris is a city that's accustomed to light displays throughout the year, but it isn't a place that has a large number of purported UFO sightings. This means that whenever evidence of strange objects in the sky emerges, it's taken quite seriously, and this footage that was recorded in 2017 has baffled experts. It shows what appears to be a cigar-shaped ship in the sky that's beaming lights onto the ground. Enthusiasts believe that this is a vessel that's scanning or watching something that's happening on the ground, but the shape of the object is unlike anything that's operated by the French authorities. Most people, though, have simply assumed that this is a hoax, but it may not be that simple. The strangest thing about this UFO is that it's very similar to two others that have been previously seen. One in China in 2010, which led to an airport being closed until it left, and another in Australia in 2014. If interstellar travel is possible, then there's no particular reason why a cigar-shaped ship wouldn't be capable of doing it, because when traveling through the vacuum of space, there's no need to be aerodynamic like our aircraft are. Could this then be proof that there are visitors who are learning about us? Until there's a clear explanation, it remains a possibility.
Unidentified flying objects, UFOs. For decades, people in the Pacific Northwest have seen things in the sky that they can't explain.
We saw this immense object in the field over there with lights that were spinning, and it was something we had never seen before. It took up most of this valley, and it was just hovering. It was just hovering, and we were mesmerized.
Gloria Bonacci and her friend Mary saw something too.
We were walking along, and all of a sudden we looked up and there was an object. It seemed to come out of nowhere. And of course we were scared and we ducked down in some tall grass behind a fence line. It was football shaped, it had red lights. All of a sudden it went up and horizontally it went toward the high bluff, and it just kind of went below the bluff and then seemed to just go really fast and be gone.
Susan and Gloria both live on Whidbey Island, not far from the Navy base. They don't know each other, but on separate occasions in the 1960s when they were kids, they say they saw something in the skies above the island that neither could identify. Whatever they saw, Whidbey Island resident and former NASA scientist Dick Haynes asked that you please not call them UFOs.
It begs the question, unidentified flying object. We don't know they're objects yet, right? Do they fly? Well, some do and some don't, right? And they're certainly unidentified, so we like the U part. So we say the UAP is a better way of presenting this idea. It's aerial, and it's a phenomenon. That's all we know.
Haynes grew up near Seattle. He worked as a NASA scientist, and though he was skeptical about unidentified aerial phenomena, he eventually founded a group that collects anonymous reports from pilots.
I heard these stories from pilots that just blew me away, and they forced me to leave that hypothesis that it was all controlled variables and so forth. It was something totally different, and that's what got me started.
The Northwest has a long history of unidentified phenomena, and people around Seattle saw things before that more famous Roswell incident in New Mexico. A pilot named Ken Arnold famously coined the term flying saucer when he saw a group of silvery discs in the skies near Mount Rainier way back on June 24, 1947. And it was 3 days before that when something called the Maury Island incident took place on Puget Sound near Des Moines. Steve Edmiston, along with Scott Schaefer, made a film about it.
On June 21, a man named Harold Dahl, who has a 50-foot boat, he goes to a dock in Tacoma and he picks up 2 dock workers. He also brings his son Charles, also brings the family dog Sparky, and they're all on the boat and they go 3 miles and they're just off Maury Island when they see, allegedly, 6 flying discs. And they describe them as round and hollow like a donut. But then there's this explosion. And according to the accounts, the explosion is almost like a molten lava. They refer to it as slag. And it's pelting down, and it's right above the boat. Harold's son is burned badly on his arm. The boat's being badly damaged. So they are so frightened, they take that 50-foot boat, and they actually race it up on the beach on Maury Island to get off the boat and hide in cliffs that were there.
The objects flew away, and the men returned to Tacoma. They agreed not to tell anyone what they had seen. The next day, Edmiston says, a mysterious man, dressed all in black, showed up at Dahl's house. That man took Dahl to a diner where he encouraged Dahl to remain silent.
You shouldn't tell anyone else what you saw.
Dahl eventually claimed the whole incident was a hoax, but Steve Edmiston thinks Dahl was just tired of not being believed. What does Steve Edmiston believe?
This is not something to dismiss as a hoax. It at least belongs over here. If nothing else, it belongs over here with the Roswells and the other great stories.
Now to Burien, where the community has embraced the Maury Island incident and Steve and Scott's film, and created an annual celebration inspired by what happened.
This is a BUFO, Burien UFO Festival. So anything can happen. Tonight in Burien, it's like aliens, everything. It's pretty much a day for the community to come out and celebrate their weirdness.
Because I came to this show here before, a couple of years ago, and I love Burien. It's just one of my favorite little towns.
Though she's dressed in a funny costume, does Lorraine believe in UAPs?
I'm going to put it this way, I don't not believe. Okay, I would never not believe.
Back on Whidbey Island, what does Gloria Bonacci believe?
I suppose really before I saw this with my own eyes, I really didn't believe. But after I saw that, you know, I kind of think there probably is things that we don't know about.
Dick Haynes was one of the first people to take Gloria Bonacci and Susan Gonzalez seriously.
When I interviewed each of them separately, the 2 groups had never met, didn't know about each other's sightings, and asked them to draw a picture of what they saw, they were drawing pretty much the same object.
What does Susan Gonzalez believe?
We're not crazy, and this really did happen, and it really did happen on this little wonderful island. It's not craziness. They're here. They've been here a long time.
And what do you believe? Have you ever seen a UAP? Until there's scientific proof, it comes down to each of us to imagine the possibilities.
May 11th, 1950, Evelyn Trent from Sheridan in Oregon, which is near the town of McMinnville, was headed back towards the farmhouse she lived in with her husband, Paul, after feeding their pet rabbits. As she did so, she said she felt a strange presence in the sky above her, and when she looked up, she saw a slow-moving metallic disc-shaped object that appeared to be moving toward her. She immediately called for her husband, who came rushing out and saw the object too, and he had enough time to go back in and get his camera and take 2 pictures of the UFO before it sped off in a westerly direction and disappeared into the sky. It was another few days until they had taken more photos to finish off the roll of film before getting it developed. But to begin with, the couple were reticent to share the photos with the world. Paul believed he'd imaged a secret military aircraft, which could have brought trouble if he showed it to anyone. But eventually, his friend who worked in a local bank convinced him to allow him to hang the photos in the window. A local reporter saw them and convinced the couple to lend them the negative so the images could be more widely published, and then they were analyzed and investigated by a committee that looked into UFOs, as well as a number of image specialists. While there have been suggestions that the images were faked, it's been impossible to prove that they are forgeries, and the Trents both insisted their account of events was true until they died in the late 1990s. These remain some of the most publicized UFO images ever taken, and if anything, prove there was definitely something strange in the air that night in Oregon. Early August of 1990, 2 hikers were walking near Calvine in the Scottish Highlands when they noticed what appeared to be a huge craft in the sky. One of them managed to take a photograph of the diamond-shaped object before it disappeared, and it soon became known as the most compelling photographic evidence of a UFO that had ever been captured in the UK. In itself, it's mysterious enough, but it's what happened next that has led to people believing this may well be actual evidence of a UFO. It's almost as if the photograph was completely erased from existence, with no copies or archives available anywhere. The people responsible for it going silent, and all mention of it being scrubbed. That was until 2022, 32 years later, when a photojournalist was researching the story and managed to track down the former press officer for the Royal Air Force, who had held on to a copy of the last remaining print. It's all that's left of the 6 images that the hikers reportedly took, and shows the mysterious object with a fighter jet in the background. It's the first time the image has ever been publicly available to see, and because the incident happened more than 30 years ago, a request was put into the Ministry of Defense to release the file that they had on the incident, because it's common practice in the UK to declassify material after that amount of time. Strangely, though, the ministry invoked privacy concerns as the reasons why they weren't able to release any further information about what had happened. And now it'll be 2072 at the earliest that all of these files relating to it can be made public.
10 News went looking for answers after someone snapped these pictures of an unidentified object flying over the San Diego skyline. Now take a closer look at the left-hand corner of your screen. You can see something there in the sky, and some are calling it Santee's Area 51. 10 News reporter Janet Kwok explains why one local photographer says she has proof we're not alone.
One Santee woman tells us her camera broke just moments after she snapped these photos of the object at this historical barn that has some people wondering about visitors from far, far away.
It was Tuesday on the afternoon. It was May 7th. I zoomed on it more, and then it was clear. It was certainly not a bug.
Ellen Henry is convinced whatever she saw hovering over Santee's Edgemoor barn is not from this world. She didn't want to show us her face because she says she's still a little spooked by what her camera captured.
What was it doing there? Why was it there? You know, what was it doing? And I said, next time I come back, the barn will be beamed up.
The barn sits under several flight paths. We called Gillespie Field and MCAS Miramar. Neither could offer an explanation. There's no mysterious objects flying above the barn tonight, but what some say flew overhead is not out of the ordinary, considering what happens here below.
We think somebody's come into the barn, and we get up to look, and there's nobody there.
Santee Historical Society, which oversees the barn-turned-museum, says the property used to be part of a poor farm and hospital grounds, drawing paranormal investigators here for ghost sightings, enough to keep a ghost log. But the idea of a UFO hovering over a haunted barn?
Maybe a little Area 51 thing going on here.
Yeah, it is strange it would choose Santee over anything else in the world, you know?
I do believe we're not alone out here.
It's a story that's truly out of this world.
Navy ships and pilots capturing images about their experiences with what they claim are UFOs. Candace Monticelli joining us to explain. Hey, Candace.
Hey, good morning. The Pentagon has confirmed the authenticity of the newly leaked video and images showing those multiple UFO sightings by the U.S. Navy personnel as the government prepares now to release a highly anticipated first-of-its-kind report of UFOs this summer.
This is probably the best UFO military filmed footage, certainly that I've ever seen, but I think also that the world has ever seen.
This night vision video shows 3 pyramid-shaped UFOs flying over the USS Russell off the coast of California in July of 2019. They reportedly hovered just 700 feet above the stern of the Navy destroyer. Other cell phone images taken by a Navy pilot flying near Australia in March 2019 show 3 unidentified crafts reportedly performing extraordinary capabilities, like staying stationary in high winds. Investigative filmmaker Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, an investigative reporter from Las Vegas, obtained the video and images.
These are unknowns, meaning they've already ruled out the typical things that you would expect, like balloons or basic drones from another country.
The Pentagon confirmed U.S. Navy personnel captured the images, and the incidents are under investigation by the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force. Corbell says these photos, unconfirmed by the Pentagon, were taken aboard the USS Omaha. They show a spherical object diving into the ocean and disappearing.
UFOs are real, and they are here, but we don't know who they are or the intent.
State plan of origin. Okay, yesterday you told us you traveled, and I quote, thousands of light years to get here. Yes. Tell us the truth or the word or never leave you. It is truth. Or I fall off. Fall off future. The truth is all. So I take it aliens took over our future, right? So you're human. Okay, so you evolved from us. So what are you doing here now? How? Okay, so how about we concentrate on your time? Try me. Wait, so you know the meaning of life? What's the difference? So you know how the universe is created? So you've seen God? Okay, illuminate us. What happens when we die? Okay, so let me get this straight. There's no death, and we all experience each other's lives, right? Okay, so how was the universe created, and why is it so perfectly made for us? nuclear war. Can you be more specific, please? Okay, one last thing. What about morality? What are you basing your morality on? I see. Okay, that's it. Thank you.